the movie I have on my list that is not so much an existential fear, but a very practical and physical fear that I have that actually this movie contributed to in a major way. So the film is 1990s Arachnophobia, directed by Frank Marshall, starring Jeff Daniels, Harley Jane Kosnak, and John Goodman. The plot summary is a species of South American killer spider hitches a lift to the U.S. in a coffin and starts to breed and kill. So like I mentioned in the outset of this, this is something that does a fear that I've had of spiders. I'll just say it of spiders. That this movie, honestly, as a child, I was afraid to even see this movie. Just because of the poster and the name. And, I was 8 years old when it came out. I remember seeing it in video stores. I had always sort of had this, primal fear. There is something innate in humans that are afraid of certain types of things. Reptiles, a lot of people have fear of snakes or, sharks. And these are all things that, yes, obviously there are practical reasons why you should stay away from snakes and spiders and sharks, which maybe is why it's sort of, I feel, built into DNA. I'm just someone who was always afraid of spiders. So I did not see this film for a very, very long time. I'm almost thinking like this film could have been on my list whether I'd ever even saw it. It's like that's how scary this. Literally seeing that VHS tape in the Blockbuster growing up was scary. But I did finally see it when I was a teenager, and I think I was not actually anticipating the tone of this film. So this film is definitely a B movie, like through and through. It knows the premise is silly. It knows it's not trying to take itself too seriously either with how they handle the spiders, but it is still like, you talk about some moments in this film that sort of feed into my fear of spiders. Scenes of people putting their shoes on and there's a spider in there and getting bitten. There's this terrifying scene in a shower where it's sort of like probably an actually allusion to the Psycho shower scene. But instead of Norman Bates showing up with a knife, this girl's in there like, taking a shower, and then a spider just slowly kind of comes down from the faucet and bites her. And these are all things that, I see a web and I get freaked out by that still. But yeah, the movie is a B movie. And, over time, especially after kind of seeing this, I'm like, you know what, maybe this is kind of a silly fear that I have. Not all spiders are going to kill you. Most spiders are actually harmless and they do a lot of good things. And, honestly, like nowadays, even I'm still afraid of spiders. Like if I see one, I'll jump. But I don't immediately kill them. Like I always try to, kind of rescue them and then put them outside because they're also they're all part of nature. We're all nature. These are all just creatures. And again, like after seeing this movie and recently too for the podcast, like rewatching, I'm like, you know what? This movie is, I was afraid to look at it because from the outside, I just saw the poster. I'm like, no way, spider, arachnophobia. I'm terrified of this. But then when you actually kind of confront your fear, you realize that there is something kind of silly about it. And again, the tone of this movie, taking it not self too seriously. It's like, I think there is something about facing your fears and realizing that they are kind of silly at the end of the day. There's the spiders in this film are some made up breed that are these spiders that can reproduce at amazing rates. Even the end of the film is really silly. Jeff Daniels is down in his basement and there's like this pulsating spider egg. When the spiders sort of make noises and like rawr, and then as they're like going towards him, and I'm like, this is silly. But it was the point of the film. The film knows what it's doing. Yeah. But I'm saying in a kind of a meta way, it's almost like my processing of this film at a later age, when I was finally willing to face my fears of the spider and watch this, I was like, you know what? Maybe I am being silly. And that, yes, I still have a fear of spiders, but it is something that, is sillier than I made it out to be as a kid. So I will say, actually, this movie holds up pretty well. I thought it's the characters are entertaining. You care about Jeff Daniels, this doctor who comes to town. John Goodman is an incredible performance as an exterminator who's just absolutely hilarious. It's so much funny stuff, and the effects are great too. Like so many of these spiders in this movie are real spiders. There's a scene at the end where it's just hundreds of spiders coming into their house, and it is actually still kind of scary.
That is kind of scary.
It is, yeah. But I think the fact that few animatronic spiders, the age pre-CGI, I think the practical effects and the real spiders they use make this movie still, kind of give me the creeps a bit. But yeah, I think this movie I had to put on the list because I couldn't even watch it for many, many years. And I was old enough and I saw it. I was like, you know what? Maybe my fear of spiders is a little silly, much like this movie. So that's arachnophobia and my fear of spiders.
Well, first of all, good for you for like overcoming and facing your fears. That's pretty awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, I remember watching this movie when it came out on VHS with, a bunch of kids, and I don't really have a fear of spiders per se. At that time when I watched as a kid, it was very much like, the typical sort of 80s movie with thrills and sort of jump scares and such. And I had a good time watching it. I have like a vague memory of watching like this one and like Killer Tomatoes.
Oh, yeah.
I sort of put them in the same kind of bucket.
Yeah.
But I hadn't seen this one since, now for preparing for the podcast. And I agree with everything you said. I will disagree on one thing, which is that I would actually not call this a B movie.
Oh, really? Okay.
I think I found this movie really entertaining, really well made. Like, this is the time. Like, I kept thinking if this movie was made now, everything would be CGI.
Oh, yeah.
Everything would look terrible. It wouldn't have this sense of place and kind of these, sweeping shots when he's like driving on the highway.
Oh, yeah.
Like just the color of this Californian town that you're in, sort of like sunny and kind of orangey. Like there's some like actual filmmaking thought that's been put into it. Performances are really good. Like people have some agency. Of course, there are plot holes all over the place.
Yeah,
like things don't make sense. Like, why are all the spiders attacking the main house at the very end, even though the core is like right there? So there's like that, of course. But overall, I think this movie is very well done. Like if this movie was made now, like I said, it would be unwatchable, I think, at least for me. So I had a very good time watching it. I was very invested in the town and Jeff Daniels. And like you said, that is the arc of the movie and his character too. He does overcome his fears.
Right.
That's
true. Right. And they move back to San Francisco. I love the stinger at the end too. When the earthquake happens, it's so funny.
Yeah, that is quite funny, actually.
But yeah, when I mean B movie, I mean in not as a slight to the film. I think I very much enjoy B movies. There's a certain kind of tone to them. But you're right. If this movie was made today, I think it could only be made as like a Sci-Fi Channel original movie. Well, those don't even exist anymore, but in that kind of like Sharknado type of lane, because that movie is very self-aware of what it's doing, Sharknado. And I honestly think this movie is self-aware too. Like they know what they're making a silly movie about killer spiders, but with a lot of talent. I think this actually might've been Frank Marshall's first directed film. He was a longtime producer with his wife and then Steven Spielberg. I think this might've been the first movie directed, but I was actually blown away in the opening shots when they're down in South America. I'm like, this movie is gorgeous. Like I don't even know who the DP on this was, but like, it looks amazing. It looks
great.
And they shot somewhere, they flew people down to wherever this place was.
Which is why not a B movie in my mind.
I don't mean in terms of budget, but in terms of tone, but I see what you're saying.
But tone too, I think.
Really?
Like, I think now we live in a world where like, everybody who's making the movies like in on the joke, wink, wink, self-references. And this is why I can't stand. I don't think I can watch another superhero movie. Sorry, people will hate me for saying this out loud, but I'm just over it totally because of that. Like, oh, this connection, that we're aware, ha ha ha, just cannot do it. This movie is not aware in that sense. Like it knows that they're not making Schindler's List, but
right.
But they're not sort of, it's not a wink, wink tale. They're serious about what is happening into this town, I think.
Yeah, maybe we should do an episode of B movies at one point. I think this could be an interesting thing a thread to continue to pull on.
Yeah.
Hey there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I cover a topic around important people, places, events, and moments in our lives, and then explore it through 3 of our favorite movies. Subscribe right now, or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.